Right. Welcome to this conversation with Evan Gow and Author Ever After. That's me. Where Evan is going to be talking about, well, in fact, Evan, I'm going to let you share what you're going to be talking about. Evan is the founder of StoryOrigin, which if you have not seen and don't know what StoryOrigin is, you can check out the other presentation that Evan has done, which goes into all the details of the fantastic services that you can get access to for $10 a month, which is just an amazing deal. So Evan, let us, I'll just pass it over to you to get started.
Awesome. Yeah. So thanks for having me. Uh, and now we're going to talk about in this presentation building a mailing list. And in the last presentation, we kind of touched on that a little bit. In this one, we're going to do a much deeper dive. And so we might, if you haven't listened to the other presentation, I would recommend going and listen to that one, because in this one, we're probably going to go through a little bit, some of the parts a little bit faster, because some of the info we've already covered in that other presentation. But in this, we're really going to do a deep dive into building a mailing list and writing a welcome sequence, which a lot of authors find challenging when they're just starting out, and what ought to be in that welcome sequence and some templates for it. So with that, let's go ahead and I will jump right into it. Slideshow here. Awesome. So just quick overview of like the author marketing landscape in general. So on ad platforms, those like, Amazon or Facebook or Twitter, wherever you might be thinking about running ads to get impressions, those are all based on bidding. So you bid for impressions on those platforms. And as those platforms become more saturated with advertisers, those bids tend to rise over time. Versus if you look at something like, paying for an email service provider, generally over time, more email service providers have come out, and those come out at more affordable rates because they're trying to compete with these other more established email service providers. So it's generally become cheaper to send newsletters over time. And then if you look at social media, that's also become a pay-to-play thing, where it used to be that when someone followed you on social media, you would just show up in their timeline anytime that you posted, because it was all just based chronologically. Whenever people posted, all of the posts would show up. Now it's all algorithmically driven. So the probability that you're going to show up in someone's timeline on social media is pretty low. Like, you're lucky if you get 3% of your followers see what you're posting on social media. And then generally, those places have become pay to play as well, where people who are ostensibly following you to get your content, you actually have to pay to boost your posts to be seen by the people who are already following you. So it's really created quite a challenging landscape for authors. And then just rates of review on products in general tends to be really low. So it's hard to get reviews on things that you are publishing. And it's a bit of a chicken and egg problem as well, where you need reviews in order to have sales, but you need sales in order to have reviews. So how do you solve that chicken and egg problem? We're going to be talking about all of that. And it all comes down to email, right? It's like this archaic technology that's been around longer than anything else at this point in the world, in the technology world, like a social media platform, right? Email is like the original one. Danny Santos says, my email list allowed me to generate reviews and launch the book to #1 new release in Gaslight Fantasy for the first week of release. And Caleb said, my mailing list is a major component to the marketing of my book. Without it, I would be dead in the water. So having a mailing list can be incredibly valuable. I'm sure you guys have heard Danica say it before. And the stuff that we're going to be talking about are tactics that you can start to apply today, even if you've never released or published a book before. These are things you're going to be able to start working on today. So just quick mailing list 101. You would want to use an email service provider to design and send those newsletters. So you're not just sending an email from your Gmail or your Yahoo account or wherever you have your normal email, your Outlook account or whatever. You would use an email service provider where you would design and send that newsletter in their web app. And then they send it. And the reason that you would want to use an email service provider is because you need to comply with data regulations like GDPR and CAN spam. Those platforms also allow you to send more than 1,000 emails in a single day versus I think like Gmail has a cap up. You can only send 500 emails in a single day from your outbox. And then they also help you avoid being categorized as spam. And they also help you with analytics around open rates, click rates, unsubscribes, etc. I'd recommend MailerLite, but you can, find lots of different email service providers. So after you've, set up your email service provider, you kind of have to ask, like, why would someone want to sign up to my mailing list to begin with? And you show them the value of signing up to your mailing list. And how do you do that? It's by giving them a free story when they sign up to your mailing list. And we call this a reader magnet. So I generally recommend a 10 to 20,000 word short story prequel to your book or your series as a reader magnet. And why a prequel? Because it hooks the readers into wanting to read the follow-up book. It provides an effective introduction to the universe, and it entices readers who both have and have not read the follow-up. So you can put the link to that prequel in the front of your book one, at the back of your book one. And for those readers who have read that paid book and they want to learn more about your universe and dive into and learn the characters' backstories and stuff like that, having that link to sign up to your mailing list to get that prequel is a really effective hook into getting them onto your mailing list. And it also, those are going to be your best subscribers because they're the ones that they really want to learn more about your characters and universe. And then I recommend it being 10 to 20,000 words. Just because if it's too long, you're going to decrease the read-through rate, the number of people that will actually finish reading it. And if it's too short, readers will feel like they're being shortchanged. And then the other thing is just that 10 to 20,000 words is quick to write and cheap to edit. And you will still want to get this reader magnet edited because even though you're giving it away for free, this is going to be the first impression that a lot of readers have of your works. And so if they get something from you for free and there's a bunch of typos, a lot of grammar issues, they're going to expect the same from your paid books, even though this one is a free book, right? It's like if you went to the food court at the mall. I know, who's been to a mall in the last 10 years, but if you go to a food court at the mall and you get a free sample and the free sample tastes bad, you're going to expect the same of the food that they're serving, just generally speaking, right? So you want to make sure that free sample that you're giving out is really good, right? It needs to be some of your best work, right? And so you still want to make sure that it's really well edited. So there's two parts of how we actually do this. So first, you need a landing page where they can sign up to your mailing list and get that free story. And so this is what it looks like on StoryOrigin. They can hit a get the story button, and then they would put in their name and email address. And then StoryOrigin integrates with 9 different email service providers. So once they put in their contact information, that will be sent directly to your MailerLite account or MailChimp or ActiveCampaign or ConvertKit or whatever you're using. If you're using an email service provider that StoryOrigin does not integrate with, you can always download a CSV of the people that have signed up to get that reader magnet via StoryOrigin and just import that CSV into your MailerLite account or where have you. And the second piece that you'll need is a place for readers to then download the ebook that they requested. So StoryOrigin has a list of instructions on how to get that ebook onto whatever their preferred reading device is, and then makes that really simple for the readers to do. And if they have any trouble or run into any issues, StoryOrigin handles the reader tech support for that as well. So if they run into an issue, they can email StoryOrigin and we'll provide them with instructions on helping them get that onto whatever the preferred reading device is. But you don't need to use StoryOrigin to do all this. You could do all this with your own website and some combination of Dropbox or Google Drive, and then you can answer these emails and stuff like this as well. But this allows you to focus on what you want to do, which is spending more time writing. So where do you actually promote your reader magnet? So I recommend putting the links in the back matter of your published books, like we've been talking about before, putting the link to that prequel at the end of book 1. Promote it on your author website or in blog posts if you blog. You can even run Facebook ads or other social media ads to that reader magnet to promote it. This is especially beneficial if you actually haven't published any books before, or you've got a very small backlist. Getting that email from someone can be much more valuable when your backlist is still small, because if you've only published book 1 in your series and you're only going to make, a 99-cent sale or something on that book 1, that's not going to be quite as lucrative as if you collect their email address and then you can sell them on buying book 1. And then when you release book 2, book 3, book 4, etc. in your series, you can then promote those releases to that person as well. And so you're getting all those follow-up sales as well. Versus if you just send them to the buy page on Amazon or wherever else and they buy that one book, they might not hear that you've released book 2 or book 3, etc. in that series. And so you're just less likely to make those follow-on sales if you're just promoting a buy link. So building your mailing list can be hugely valuable. And then lastly is email cross promotions. So that is another way where you can promote your reader magnet with other authors to build your mailing list. So email cross promotions, they are a fast growing method of promoting your books because they're free. You and I, we don't have to pay each other to promote each other's books. I'm just agreeing to promote one of your books and you agree to promote one of my books. They're easy. You don't have to figure out some complicated ads dashboard or targeting or bidding strategies or anything like that. Again, I'm just promoting a link to your book in my newsletter. And then it's also targeted by genre. So if I'm a romance author, I'll find another romance author to cross promote my book with. So I know that my book is going to an audience that is going to enjoy it, right? So there's 2 types of cross promotions. The first is a newsletter swap. So that's kind of like what I've been describing, where I'm promoting your book in my newsletter and you promote my book in your newsletter. So the way that would work is like I would drop the book cover into your newsletter. So the screenshot you see here is a picture of my newsletter. And then when someone clicks on that book cover, it will link to that reader magnet landing page. So when I'm promoting another book in my newsletter, it takes them to the landing page for that book. A group promo is where you, me, and let's say 20 other authors on our genre, we all list our books on a single landing page, and then we all drive our traffic to that single landing page. So usually there will be a group promo like banner graphic, and I will take that group promo banner image and I'll put that into my newsletter. And so when people click on that banner image in my newsletter, it will take them to the landing page that shows all the books that are a part of that group promo. Some common questions that I get are, can I use a book in KU as a reader magnet? And you can give up to 10% according to Amazon's KDP knowledge base of your books. Essentially, what it is Amazon already lets people use that look inside feature on Amazon to preview and read the first chapter or 2 or 3 of books. And so Amazon's like, look, even though your book's in KU, we already let people read it for free, like the first 1 or 2 chapters, even if they're not like a Kindle Unlimited subscriber or anything. So since we do that, you can do that too. So you can use portions of a book. Essentially, you would want to match what the Amazon Kindle preview is for that book. But that being said, again, a prequel short story to your book or your series is generally has the highest efficacy. You'll get more subscribers for a full story than you will for a sample. So I always recommend using a full story, even if it's like an anthology of short stories or something like that, as opposed to using a sample of a full book. Can I join cross promos if I have 0 subscribers? Absolutely. There's many authors who started on StoryOrigin with 0 subscribers, and then they built up their mailing list to hundreds or thousands of subscribers. And so they started, arranging group promos or accepting newsletter swaps from other authors. So when they see someone apply with 0, they can say, oh, I remember being in that person's shoes like a month or 2 ago, like, and not having any subscribers and being anxious and worried about like, how am I going to do this and all this stuff. So a lot of those other people in the StoryOrigin community are more than happy to help out authors who are just starting out. And the last question is like, okay, so someone signs up to my mailing list. What do I do then? And so what I recommend doing is send them a welcome email. And you can set that up on your email service provider. You can set up an automation sequence so that anytime someone signs up to your mailing list, they'll automatically get an email. You don't need to do anything other than that initial setup process. And the goals of that welcome sequence, what you want to have is ensure that they've gotten the download, remove any freebie seekers from your mailing list that are just there to get that free book. And then you also want to find your champions with that welcome sequence. So I like to think about welcoming, your new subscribers as if you're bringing a friend to a party or a friend is bringing you to a party. So if someone brings me to a party, I feel really uncomfortable if they like bring me to a party and then just like leave me standing there, and then they walk away and go hang out with other people, right? What I really love when someone brings me to a party is like, introduce me to people, introduce me to other people because I'm bad at that. And then like ask me some questions so that I can be engaged in whatever conversation you're having with your other friends that I don't know, right? So that I can feel like I'm part of the conversation. And then like share stories from how you know people and how you've gotten to meet. And then I can have some idea of, oh, okay, that's how, this person is this person, that's like, this is this person's kind of personality and stuff like that. And that's just like how that's really helpful to me, or to like introverts, especially who might not be used to like going and meeting new people and stuff like this. So making this actionable to your newsletter. So first I recommend is writing your newsletter as if you're addressing an individual, not a group. So I always start off my emails with, hey, Evan, or hey, Danica. Like it will always be addressed to the individual, not to a group. So I never start an email with, hey, gang, or howdy, y'all, or whatever your preferred pluralism is for a group of people, because you want to make that email feel like you're writing it to just that person. And so I usually have like someone in mind when I'm writing a newsletter, that I'm just writing it to that person. Even though that email goes out to thousands of people, I'm just writing it for that person. And that allows me to like do that framing much more easily in my head. So I recommend using that own framing, can be beneficial to you as well. Next up is share a personal story or picture, or better yet, both, from stuff that you've done recently, right? Like, you took your kid to the park, or you went and you walked your dog. It doesn't need to be like some crazy story. It can be really just simple life stuff. One of like my recent newsletters was my wife and I were at the zoo with our kid, and he fell asleep in his stroller, and we took a picture together while we were at the zoo, and it was just me and her. And like that was one of the pictures. We haven't had a picture that was just the two of us in a really long time, because when you've got a 3-year-old, you're just like, it's all about them, right? Or like, like I was considering getting a grill. Emily made some grilled vegetables over at her parents' house, and I was like, wow, these grilled vegetables so much better than just steamed vegetables or whatever. Like, should I buy a grill, right? So like I had a picture of like the grilled vegetables Emily made, and then like I was like, should I buy a grill? And I got some great advice from people, right? So that other part is like also just asking simple questions, like to engage your audience and start building relationships with people.
Evan, I just want to
Yeah.
pop in and say that your emails are worth getting, because they not only do they have good information, but there's always that little personal piece. And I can tell you that in one of the reader groups, or not reader, writer groups that I'm in, people who haven't met you have decided that you're a really nice guy, like, oh, Evan's a really great guy, he's a really nice guy, because you talk about Emily and you talk about Henry. No, what is your son's name?
Henry.
Henry, I'm right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, in your emails. And it's, yeah, you start to feel like, Evan, and you want to, like, we want to be nice to Evan because Evan's a good guy. So it's just, you are a great leader by example for email.
Yes. I appreciate you saying that so much. Yeah, and I mean, I hear that sentiment from authors quite frequently, and I try to practice what I preach. This is what I recommend authors do with their own audiences as well. I am very similar to my customers, right? Like a lot of StoryOrigin authors are, indie authors. They have their mailing list, they have their audience. I am like, building a software. I'm not writing a book, but I'm building a software. And then like I have, the authors that use it, and I try to build relationships with them, and be very approachable. And I highly recommend, authors doing the same with their audience. I know I attribute a huge percentage of StoryOrigin's success to the newsletters that I write, and like having real relationships with authors that use StoryOrigin. I'm going to be going to a conference next week, and I generally don't really like try to sell StoryOrigin, as weird as that sounds. Like it's usually not like at $10 a month, it's like spending an hour trying to convince someone to spend $10 a month on StoryOrigin. It's generally not like a worth my time per se. But I love just going and talking to authors, and like it's the same over email. I love just emailing with authors about like, oh, like what are things that I should be doing, or ways that I can improve StoryOrigin, or like ways I can be helpful and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I mean, that's something that I love, and I hope that you guys love it too, because it's really valuable to do, especially with your own audiences. And then lastly is like create a place for readers to meet each other, like have a Facebook group or a forum or something like that, where your readers can meet each other. And then that also provides good fuel for your newsletter to talk about, like, oh, we were discussing this, thing in our Facebook group, like whatever, maybe you write sci-fi or something and you talk about Star Trek in your Facebook group, right? And you talk about like what your favorite episodes are or something like that. And then you can bring that kind of content into your newsletter, and it creates like a virtual cycle where you're like engaging with people, and you're also like building relationships and things. So nitty gritty, like what is the welcome sequence that I recommend? So first email in your welcome sequence, I recommend a three email welcome sequence. A lot of authors, backing up, a lot of authors will talk to other authors who have been doing this for like 5, 6, 7 years, and they hear from those authors, yeah, I've got like a 20 email welcome sequence, and I have these different branches and segmentation and all this crazy analytics around like who's going into what funnel and all this stuff. And if I guarantee you ask that person what was their welcome sequence like when they were starting out day one, they're like, oh, I didn't have a welcome sequence until I had like 200 subscribers. Like you just got on my list, I had no welcome sequence, right? So if you can even have just a 1 email welcome sequence when you get your first subscriber that just says, hey, thanks for joining my list, like you will be ahead of the curve for sure. So like while I recommend like having a 3 email welcome sequence and all that stuff, like if it's literally just, if you start out with just 1 email, it just says thank you, like great, do that. like tear down any roadblock to getting started. You don't need a bunch of these fancy like segmentation things and like funnels and branches and stuff like that. Like it's just very simple. And so the email sequence that I recommend, while it is 3 emails, is very simple emails. So the first one is, thank you for signing up in my mailing list, and here's a free copy of that book. So when someone signs up to your reader magnet on StoryOrigin, they're going to be getting that download link automatically from StoryOrigin. You don't need to do anything. However, I recommend also setting up a direct download on StoryOrigin. So that's different from the reader magnet feature. That's, they have to sign up to your mailing list in order to get that download. You can also set up a direct download page on StoryOrigin, which does not require the reader to sign up to your mailing list in order to get it. Set up that direct download page, and you can also protect it by integrating it with your email service provider. And then the person has to enter their email address, and StoryOrigin will verify that email address actually shows up on your mailing list before they can download it. So if you want to do it that way, you can do it that way too, or you can just leave it unprotected. And look, if people share the link to my prequel and more people get the prequel for free, even if they're not on my mailing list, like those are still readers that will then be hooked into wanting to buy book one. So there's value in leaving it open too, right? But having that direct download in that first email in your welcome sequence, and then providing a personal picture or story so that they can get to know you, or having a story from your Facebook group or forum, and then having a call to action. It might be something like joining your Facebook group, but if you don't want to run a Facebook group, like don't do it. Like if you don't enjoy Facebook, don't do it. Like don't force yourself to use social media that you don't like to use by any means. You can use just as a call to action, like what I was saying earlier, is like, should I buy a grill? Like just ask questions to your audience to engage them in a conversation and start to build relationships. Like it does not need to be simple. It does not need to be like complicated or anything like that. Keep the questions really simple, just and then you'll be surprised by what people respond back with. Like if you just share, oh, these are some of my favorite authors in the genre. What are some of your favorite authors in the genre? And then people will tell you, oh, I got started reading so-and-so, and then that's how I got into so-and-so. And then like you start to develop real relationships, and then those people will become your beta readers or your reviewers, etc. It's really valuable.
The email in my automation that gets the most, and I can't remember if it's number 1 or number 2, but the subject line is, are you a woman of a certain age? And I tell the story of an eye doctor, a young guy who was probably like 12 years old, who, when I didn't need glasses until I turned 40. And he said, oh, you're a woman of a certain age, you have to expect this. And so that gets all these women replying saying, like, grr, I remember this person the first time they told me I was old. And like, it's a very highly responded to email, and it's just silly, really. Nothing to do with the book specifically, but it is me, my voice.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So.
Yes. Yeah. Having those personal stories are, incredibly valuable. And, like I was talking to one author, he wrote a book about, like a little girl that gets lost in another dimension or whatever. So in his welcome sequence, he actually talks about the time his little sister got lost in the mall, and then he has that welcome sequence, and he's like, oh, and actually, like, I wrote a whole book about this like idea of like losing your little sister, and then like that is like a way that he introduces like his book about that, right? So that like personal story related to your writing as well can be quite valuable too, and that's a way to do that. So like combo, like introduce yourself, but then also introduce your books. So email 2 in your welcome sequence, I would recommend this is like you're introducing yourself in your community email. And I would have it trigger like 1 to 3 days after the reader has subscribed. So that first email they'll get as soon as they've signed up to your mailing list. This one will come like the day after or a couple of days later. For the subject, I recommend something like my first love, or how I joined the underworld, or genre is the best and here's why. And for the content of this, a personal story related to your genre is what I recommend, because it is the only thing that that your audience, you're going to share something in common with them, right? Like if you write romance and they signed up to your mailing list to get a romance novel, like you share that in common with them. So you can share a story about like, how did you get into writing romance? Who are some of your favorite romance authors that inspired you to start writing? Stuff like that. And then that provides a really good segue into them sharing their own favorite romance authors, or how they learned about the genre. Like maybe you write in a very niche genre. Like how did they discover that niche genre even existed, right? And so everyone has their own personal stories, and that's always fun to share with other people. And I would recommend, again, in this email, having a link to that direct download page for your reader magnet that you sent them before. So look, so they've gotten the link from StoryOrigin. They've gotten the link in your first welcome sequence. They've gotten the email in your second welcome sequence. Why do you need to keep sending them this download, Evan? Like that, what's the point? The point is people have very long to be read lists, right? And the more that you can bump your book up to the top of that to be read list, the more likely, they're going to actually then buy the follow-up book or series, right? So if they, them having signed up and downloaded your reader magnet does not mean that they have read it, right? It might be at the bottom of a 20 book to be read list, right? So you want to make sure that you bump it to the top of their to be read list. And one really simple way to do that is just remind them that they have the book, right? Because sometimes people are sitting on a giant list and they forget that they even thought, oh, I really wanted to read that book because I liked the cover and I read the description. It looked really interesting. So just sending them like, here's the book cover again, here's that description again, nudges them to get started reading. Because they will never go on to buy book one if they haven't even started the prequel yet, right?
I would even toss in one of your reviews, like a short review of that reader magnet, which you could solicit from one of your author friends or from an actual reader that has emailed you.
Yes, absolutely. Including reviews and social proof from in your newsletters can be incredibly valuable. I know an author who every time they send out a newsletter, I think they send out a newsletter every couple of weeks, they go and they screenshot a review from BookBub or Goodreads and or Amazon and put that into their newsletter and say, hey, thank you so and so for writing a review. They don't necessarily know that that person is on their mailing list, but by putting that social proof into their newsletter, they do a couple of things. First, they encourage other people to then go and write their reviews because they're saying, oh, I might get a call out in so-and-so's newsletter because they just screenshot this, like this review from this past week. If I go and write a review, I might get into their newsletter, right? And then the second thing is that you are then, for those who have not read that book, right, you're providing them the social proof, the reasoning that they ought to go and read it because you just shared a review of like, this is such a wonderful book. I loved it so much, blah, 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 right? And so you're probably increasing your sales as well. And so, or in getting people to start reading. So you can do this exact same thing for your reader magnets as well, for sure. That's great advice to include, Danica. And then for the call to action for that welcome sequence email, again, it can be join the Facebook group or it can be, just ask them a question to engage them in a conversation, like what are their favorite authors, etc.
And you also mentioned in the earlier presentation, a call to action here potentially could be join my beta reader list, join my review crew.
So that is the third email.
Third. Okay.
Great segue. So email 3 in your welcome sequence is about finding your champions. So this one would be triggered somewhere around 2 to 7 days after the reader has subscribed to your mailing list. So, hopefully, if you send it a week after they've signed up to your mailing list, hopefully they've already been able to read that reader magnet that you've sent them. And so they're generally going to have a better idea of whether or not they would want to, sign up to your review team. But for the subject, it might be something like get the follow-up to, reader magnet for free. Or what I've seen some authors do, and I really like this approach, is you say, get all of my books for free forever. Like that is an enticing call to action, right? Because I could get 20 books or something for free. What do I need to do that, right? Or like every book that you're going to publish thereafter. And so for the content, again, link to that direct download page if they haven't gotten started reading that reader magnet. But the call to action is the really key part here. This is where you would link to a place where they can request to be a part of your review team, right? So you can set that review copy request page up on StoryOrigin, or you can use a Google form, or you can just set up another page like on your email service provider or something like that, where they can sign up to a mailing list to be a part of your review team. However you want to do it, have a call to action where they can request to be on your review team. So let's talk a little bit about building a review team. So there's really two parts to building a review team. That's vetting review copy requests, and then tracking and following up. So the first part is vetting those requests to be on your review team. So ask people for the links to their reviewer profiles from Amazon or Goodreads or BookBub, and then check and see what reviews have they posted recently. Are those reviews in my genre? Like, let's say I write steamy romance and someone has only ever reviewed cozy romance. I might not want them to be on my review team, because if they're joining my review team thinking they're getting cozy romance and then I give them steamy romance, I don't want to feel like I don't want them to feel like they're obliged to leave a review for something that they're not going to like. So check out their reviews that they've left. And then you want to see a history of completed reviews. So this is a bit more difficult if you're doing this like on your own in a silo, but if you use the review copies feature on StoryOrigin, you can see the list of the number of review copies they've been approved for through StoryOrigin before, and then the number of review copies that they've actually completed the review process for. And then tracking and follow-up. So I recommend following up with your review team members when the book is published, right? So if you're giving a pre-publication copy, you want to send a email on the day that the book is published saying, hey, the book is published. Now you can go and leave your reviews on Amazon or wherever else, right? And then if they haven't left a review on the book within 2 weeks, I'd recommend sending a follow-up email, just, hey, wanted to make sure that you saw the book is out there, like you got the book, everything was downloaded, and to leave your review if you haven't already. And then lastly, I'd recommend sending an email when they complete their review and saying, hey, thank you so much for the review. And that is a great opportunity to say, would you like the next book for free as well? And give them the review copy for the next book. So those first two emails are ones that StoryOrigin will handle for you if you're using the review copies feature. StoryOrigin will send an email when the book is published and send an email if the reader hasn't left a review within 2 weeks. And then StoryOrigin leaves that last email for you, the author, because that is a great relationship building opportunity after they've left a review and said, oh, I love this book, for you to be able to say, hey, do you want the next one for free, or start to build a relationship with them, or just say thank you. So
bring them in as beta readers potentially,
yes,
too, if you're looking for beta readers.
Yes, yeah. So that third email in your welcome sequence, it could be a review copy team member, or you could make that a call to action for people to join your beta reading team, or what have you. But yeah, those people who leave great reviews for you, and you can look at their reviewer profiles, and they've read 20 books in the genre, that they know the tropes of the genre really well, and so they would probably make really good beta readers as well, because they'll be able to point out, oh, like this kind of thing doesn't really fit into this genre, or like this thing was missing, like this is a thing that I really want out of a book in this genre and you didn't have it. So they can certainly make good reviewers. So from a reviewer side, how does this work? So you need a request form. Again, this is what it looks like on StoryOrigin, but you could do this on Google Forms or something instead if you like. So they would say where they plan to leave a review, Amazon, Goodreads, BookBub, wherever, and they would also input the links to their reviewer profiles on those platforms, and they would submit that request. After you've approved their request, then they also get a page on StoryOrigin which shows the steps for them to complete. So step 1, they download the copy, they get reading it. Step 2 is they write that review on StoryOrigin, so that if you've given them a review copy like 5 weeks ahead of the publication date, they can write the review on StoryOrigin as soon as they've read the book. And then on publication date, all they need to do is go to StoryOrigin, hit the copy review text, and then go and publish it to Amazon or Goodreads or BookBub or wherever they said they were going to leave a review on publication date. Makes it much easier for them than having to remember, oh, I read that book like 4 weeks ago. What was it about? And then step 3 on StoryOrigin is they would confirm where they left their reviews and leave the links to those reviews if available. On the author's side, what it looks like is when someone requests a review copy from you, you can look at their reviewer profile. So see the links to their reviewer profiles on Amazon or Goodreads or BookBub, etc. And then you can look at what percentage of review copies that they've been approved for on StoryOrigin and completed. So you can have a relatively be relatively sure of whether or not you're going to they're going to actually complete a review if you give them a copy. And the second thing is, after you've approved them, you get a team tracking page. So this will list all of your reviewers, the timeline of when you approved them, when they wrote their review, when they submitted their review links, and then when StoryOrigin sent reminder emails to them if StoryOrigin needed to send reminder emails to them. And then you can look at the review they left and the links to those reviews from the other platforms. Okay, so that's the welcome sequence, right? So, introduce yourself, introduce your community, make sure people got the download, and then find your champions, right? The people who are going to want to be a part of your review team or beta reader team. So that's all part of that welcome sequence. Now let's talk for a minute about regular email campaigns. So I recommend you send a newsletter at least once per month. If you send a newsletter less frequently than that, if you only send a newsletter like once every 3 months, there's a high chance that people are going to have forgotten why they signed up to your mailing list, and maybe even forgotten who you are or what book of yours that they read. So you want to send emails more frequently so that you stay top of mind and they remember who you are. Of course, if you send a newsletter every single day, that might be too much. So we have to find a good range in there. And I'd recommend the range is somewhere around once per week to once per month. I recommend sending twice a month. From authors that I've talked to, the authors that have experimented with how frequently they send their newsletters, they actually have higher open rates, lower unsubscribes, the more when they send newsletters twice per month rather than once per month. So a lot of authors get in their head that, oh, if I send a newsletter like once a month, I'm going to be disturbing people too much. Like it's going to be, they're going to be getting too many emails from me. But the authors that try sending an email twice a month actually had lower unsubscribe rates, right? And higher open rates. There was a time when I was trying to remember like when someone had sent me an email, and I thought they had sent me the email like 2 months ago. They had sent me the email 2 weeks ago. It's just I got so many emails between those 2 points in time that I was like, oh, I haven't heard from that person in forever, right? So just 2 weeks is really, it seems actually from a person reading emails perspective, it actually seems like quite a long time between emails if you only send them every 2 weeks or twice a month. And so for the content of those emails, just like with the welcome sequence emails, I recommend including like personal stories or things from your community that you might have built, general interests that you might have, like movies you've watched or whatever. Like me talking about like, Emily going and grilling stuff over at her parents, or like, whatever movies you might have watched lately. And then lastly is deals. So books that the readers might want, other books that those readers might want to read. And those are a hugely valuable component to your newsletter, because there's sort of 2 parts of a newsletter, right? The first part is where you're building a rapport, building a relationship with your audience, right? Having those stories of, here's what I did this past week. Here's a cute picture of my dog, or here's, something I went to the park with my kid or whatever, right? But those aren't reason alone for people to open your emails, right? If all of my emails that I ever sent out were only just, here's a picture of my dog, people would stop opening my emails, because that would be, they're not getting any value out of opening my emails, right? That's why my emails always include like software updates that I've made to StoryOrigin to make it easier, better, faster, whatever, right? So my newsletters for me generally tend to be like, how much, like, here's my thing of value, which is, here's an update I've made to StoryOrigin, here's how it's going to be beneficial to you. And then the second part of my email is usually like, here's a personal story or whatever. And that's a relationship and rapport building aspect of the newsletter, right? So for you as an author, if all you ever do is share personal stories, people are going to generally stop opening your emails, right? you need to be providing value to your readers. And what do readers find value out of? They get value because they're always looking for what their next thing to read is. And so if you have other books to share in your newsletter, that gives them a source of inspiration of what books to look at next for what they might want to read next. That is extremely valuable to your readers. And so having that two parts of your newsletter, one is the rapport building aspect, and then the other is having other books for them to look at. That is how you provide readers and get them to keep opening their emails, your emails. So I recommend having those cross promotions in every newsletter. And I recommend somewhere around like 2 to 4 newsletter swaps and 1 to 3 group promos in each newsletter. You don't need to do it exactly like this. But generally speaking, like the more frequently you send newsletters and the more cross promotions that you can participate in, the better, right? Because it's just going to be all part going towards building your mailing list or finding reviewers or increasing your sales. But there is a downside to doing too many. So when you're on StoryOrigin and you're arranging newsletter swaps with other authors, you can go into their past cross-promotion history and see how many clicks that they've sent to every book that they agreed to promote in each newsletter. And so if I see someone agreed to promote 20 books in their newsletter and they only sent 1 click to every single book that they promoted, I'm not going to request a newsletter swap with that person. And if they request a newsletter swap with me, I'm likely to decline it because I know that they're not going to really be sending that many clicks to my book, and they're sort of just stuffing my book in with a bunch of others. So you don't want to do too many newsletter swaps or too many group promos, because when you're arranging those cross promotions with other authors on StoryOrigin, you can see that cross promotion history. And so you want to make sure that you're doing a good job of promoting other authors and you are actually sending clicks to their books. So organizing group promos is especially great if you are just starting out because you are in control of who gets to be a part of that group promo. So if you organize a group promo, you can for sure make sure that your books are in it. And if you are the organizer, you can also give your books a premium spot. So when StoryOrigin, whenever a reader clicks on that group promo landing page on StoryOrigin, all of the books are automatically shuffled. Every time the page refreshes, all of the books are shuffled so that every author has a fair chance of showing up near the top of the page. Now, if you're the group promo organizer, you can give your books a premium spot so they will always show up at the top of the page. And so you can make sure that you're getting more visibility on your books as the group promo organizer. And it's really easy to set up on StoryOrigin. It's like a very short form. And then you just add an image, like a cover image for that group promo. You can do this with BookBrush's custom creator. They even have like a StoryOrigin canvas that will automatically size it to StoryOrigin's canvas size for that group promo image. But you don't even need to use, like you can you can make it in PowerPoint. Like you just grab an image, slap some text on top, like group them and combine them and export that as an image. That's fine too. You don't need to use whatever tool you're comfortable with is fine, right? But yeah, I just generally recommend, the title of the group promo and then the date that's running. And then the last part is recruiting participants, and you can do that through StoryOrigin and through Facebook groups. So when you organize a group promo, it'll automatically be listed in the upcoming group promos on StoryOrigin, and lots of authors will just browse the upcoming group promos on StoryOrigin and just apply to the group promo that way. But if you want to go above and beyond, you can also list that group promo in a bunch of Facebook groups. There's a lot of Facebook groups for authors to run cross promotions. And you can just add the links in those groups. There's lots of genre specific ones, and they can apply, and you can recruit more participants to your group promo that way. And generally speaking, the more participants that you have in your group promo, the better that it's going to be, and you're going to be bringing in fresh faces and stuff like this to your group promo as well. So yeah, that's a great tactic, especially if you're starting from zero, to really start to it substantially increases the efficacy of group promos to organize your own and give your own books the premium spots and try and recruit as many authors as possible. So that is all. I hope that you guys have found this really useful, and I'd be happy to answer any additional questions or follow-ups that you guys might have had on that.
That was brilliant. Thank you. There was a question at the very, very beginning. You had a slide that said to identify freebie seekers. How does one identify freebie seekers?
Thankfully, they identify themselves, right? If you if you send them a welcome sequence email as soon as they sign up to your mailing list, they'll usually just immediately unsubscribe.
Got it.
And then,
okay.
And then you've gotten them off your mailing list, and then you're not paying for them, right? Because generally speaking, like most email service providers, you'll be on a pricing tier depending on how many people are subscribed to your mailing list. And so if they just immediately remove themselves from your mailing list, then you don't need to worry about, going up to the next pricing tier on your email service provider or whatever, right? So just sending a welcome email at all will, they'll usually self-select out.
Perfect. Thank you. I mean, that's obvious, but it didn't occur to me as the answer. Thank you.
You can also do other things too, where if like readers haven't opened or clicked on any of the links in the past like 20 emails or newsletters that you've sent like that, or if someone doesn't click on any of the links in your welcome sequence or something like that, you can just remove them from your mailing list. It kind of just depends on how much you really care. I would say, generally speaking, it's better to just let people stay on your mailing list. It's generally pretty cheap to have quite a few people on your mailing list. So there's not really much of a good reason to remove people from your mailing list, unless you have like 30,000 people on your mailing list and you're paying an exorbitant amount of money for that. And then you like really need to cut down your costs or something like that. For the most part, it's not expensive to have a bunch of people on your mailing list. But yeah, you can do that by segmenting them out on your email service provider, just like people that don't click links. I would say one word of caution to authors is don't trust open rates completely, because a lot of email clients some will block any tracking of open rates, and then some will click on every link, and so will always show as the email having been read, even if it's not been read. So open rates are a little bit more finicky. You can't always trust them, because different email clients. So there might be someone that opens all of your emails and reads all of your emails, and it might look like they've never opened an email from you because their email client automatically blocks tracking and stuff like that. So you wouldn't necessarily want to remove that person from your mailing list, even though it looks like they've never opened an email.
That is true. I know I did an experiment with my own, and Mac Mail automatically marks every email that goes to Gmail as open. And I was trying to anyway, so it's frustrating sometimes when you're trying to figure out data. Anyway, so yes, Evan, this was a fantastic morning to spend with you. Thank you. Really pleased that you've shared all of this with us. For everyone who's in Author Ever After, if you've got any questions or need any support setting up your StoryOrigin, like creating a group promo, for instance, I'm here. I'm happy to help you. And I don't think you will need help because it's really intuitive. The whole software is just so easy to use. But I am here for members to support you if you need that. And
I'm here too.
Yeah, and my chief cook, bottle washer, and everything. Yes.
So if you go to StoryOriginApp.com, if you scroll to the very bottom of the page, you will see my name. You'll see my email address. I am very transparent. I open and respond to all of the emails that I get. I'm always happy to help out. So feel free to reach out if you ever run into any trouble. Ashley says, 2 hours later and my brain is mush with info. So definitely understand if people are like they go into storage and they're like, okay, now what was Evan saying again? Like, feel free to reach out anytime.
Thank you so much. And thanks everybody who came out live and who was watching the replay. I will see you, or happy romance writing. Okay, thanks, Evan.
Thank you.